Today's tip is something that I'd used before, but was never really formalized for me until I watched a video by a friend of mine, Andre Anderson, on the closed guard. What that showed me was that there's a little thing that you can do that'll make your closed guard way harder to pass, especially when your opponent is on his knees, and it'll also give you a lot more energy when you're trying to sweep your opponent, move him around, keeping him on the defensive and letting you set up your own attacks and sweeps and a generally offensive guard as opposed to passively reacting to whatever your opponent does to you. Here's a typical closed guard. As you can see, my butt's on the ground, my ankles are crossed behind Richie's back, and there's actually a fair bit of space between my hips and his belly. And at this point, Richie can do all kinds of passes on the ground, a lot of which include putting his knee in my butt or his knee in my tailbone, and then moving backwards and pushing down, putting a lot of pressure against my ankles and cracking them open. Another thing he might do is put his hands in my armpit, put his knee in my tailbone, stand up, put a knee in the tailbone, then sit down, and then arch his back there, and again, crack open my ankles. So you're going to do two things to change this. First of all, my hips are going to come up off the ground, and secondly, my heels are going to bend down. It doesn't look like a big difference from here to here, but it feels very different for him. So it's an active kind of closed guard. My hips come up and my heels go down. There's actually space underneath my butt. What this does is, even if I'm not controlling the grips, even if I'm not grip fighting, breaking his posture, it makes it much harder for Richie to put his knee against my butt or against my tailbone. I've ski jumped up onto his thigh. Instead of my butt being here, my butt's up on his thigh. So I've moved my hips closer to his belly. You really need to feel this for it to make sense. Instead of being here, my butt on the ground, my ankles just crossed, my butt's off the ground, my heels are down. Even if Richie stands up and tries to put the knee in the tailbone, it's much harder because he doesn't have the separation. So that makes a huge difference to your closed guard. The other thing that it does is, by having my hips up off the ground, it cocks my hips ready to pull him in. Everyone knows that it's important to pull in with your knees to apply the closed guard. Well, you know what? It's a lot easier if your hips are up and my heels are down, because now I've got more momentum that I can build. Say Richie shifts his weight, starts to stand up, I can pull him forward. I can completely destroy his base with a lot more energy than if my hips were already on the ground. My hips are up, he moves around, I pull him here. At this point, when the arms are crossed, there's just so many options I can do. So once you're here, your number one move is going to be the arm bar, probably. But even if you don't get that, you say he postures up too much for the arm, you can once again use your knees to bring him in, sit up, and start attacking for the Kimura. He postures up. You can use that hip action to bring him forward. He plants the hand on the ground. Now as he tries to come back up and make posture, you come and you take him in the hip bump sweep. So many things you can do. Now the really cool thing is, his only good passing option is to stand up. Many people are going to instinctively stand up against this kind of closed guard, even if their standing passes aren't the best. So, it's a Jedi mind trick. You are essentially telling him how to pass your guard. Of course, you're trying to break his posture and make sure it never gets to that. But his only option is to stand. You know he's going to stand, so you have all your sweeps against a standing opponent ready to go. Hopefully your training does have some closed guard sweeps that you can use against a standing opponent. There's all kinds of them. There's so many. A couple common ones might be, he stands up, somehow, stand up all the way, Richie. I control the wrist, I underhook the leg, and I switch to the omoplata. Maybe I roll him here and control him, or transition to another submission. Or I can do the waiter sweep, which is a YouTube video of that out there. Or I can can switch to the De La Riva, or can switch to any number of techniques that work really well from the closed guard against a standing opponent.